All right, let's get this show on the road. So yes, like that was an thank you for introduction. And by the way, wanted to thank all of you to actually have me and like hosting the event. Yes, indeed, I am definitely here to talk to you about multiplayer development with Unity, in particular with one of the new library called Netcode for GameObjects. So like I always said, my name is Esteban Maldonado. I am a developer advocate for Unity, representing the multiplayer solutions, proudly from Puerto Rico here, and to deliver this message. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. Don't worry, I'll put that at the end. So put that in the end again, and also put my email so you can follow me along. Okay, so uh, even though I'm here to talk about mostly Netcode for GameObjects, really Unity has a lot of new services. We call them Unity Gaming Services. There's a whole suite of services that actually can help you not just in the development process, but also once your game is live, like analytics, remote configuration, cloud content, analytics, and acquisition, and so on. But that that little tier on the left that you see here, multiplayer, and especially netcode, a little bit of relay, a little bit of lobby, that's what we're going to be concentrating on today for the most part. So takes us to today's agenda. We're going to go over what is netcode, what is really netcode, how to prepare a project for a Unity project for netcode, preparing a basic session, and then a little bit of code dive into a neat small little sample that I prepared for today, and some additional resources and services. Because if I could teach you all of multiplayer development in 1 hour or a little bit more, I would definitely would, but it's not that easy. But this library is definitely, and other services definitely here to help you today. Okay, so what is Netcode? Netcode for GameObjects. So this is a library that even though it's a high-level library in C# that you have to use to actually start coding what kind of data to synchronize, what kind of game objects, messages to send in between connected players. It actually saves you a lot of the trouble of having to code low-level logic in an engine about creating connections or creating sockets and whatnot. But in a nutshell, this is a library for you to synchronize game object and world information to all the different connected players. And one of the requirements, like as of today, one two strong requirements is that you do use Unity version 2020.3 or newer. And even though it does ease a lot of the technical debt required to develop the multiplayer side of the game, you still need to know a little bit or be very familiar with the Unity C# environment. So getting to know a little bit, knowing messages about update, fix update, late update, awake, start. Just having that familiarity will bring to you better results at the beginning. And with that, I wanted to quickly share with you one game sample that we're currently working on and will soon be released. Oops, there we go. It's called Galactic Kittens. It is a small 2D cooperative game built with Netcode for GameObjects that will teach you how to interact with the library. And in this 2D co game, it's about these 4 kittens, and up to 4 players can connect together and play along and go on this small little space journey. And they have to defeat these enemies and other obstacles like meteorites. See this little mouse shooting at the players, but you get to shoot back. But eventually you get to meet the actual final enemy, which get a little warning, and then you get to see this awesome kind of boss. But we're currently working on it, and will soon be available for you to download. So gonna be moving on. But okay, we talk a little bit about what Netcode does. But let's step back a little bit before we actually touch any game development or any dive into any specifics. Let's define the problem. What are we actually solving? So we have a player here, and we have this other person who also likes to play video games. We're all here. We like to play video games. So let's say that both of these people are actually playing the same game, and they're thinking, oh, wait a minute. How can I actually, like, what if I wanted to share this experience? What if I wanted to have this player on, I'm on the right, I'm on the right side of the screen. In Esteban's presentation, how can I share this experience with the person on the left of Esteban's presentation? So we need to establish a connection then, right? And even though we still have two people that want to participate in the same experience in the same game, let's actually change the roles to client and host server. Let's actually label these correctly. Now, what does these two terms actually mean? A server or host, and the way that we're going to be referring to it for the rest of this talk, is the actual device or the actual player. Well, the player is not a device, but like where the game is running, that has the authority of determining what is really happening, what is the current situation of the state of the world. Where are the players? Where are the enemies? Who's shooting to who? Who killed who? Who defeated who? But a client is somebody that actually connects to the host or the server and shares their information. So really, a server is sort of like the decisive entity. And in the end, that's really all that like multiplayer development, that's a real problem of multiplayer development. Trying to sell the illusion that all the players are all being part of the same moment in the world, and all of them are really sharing that same experience. And the client the client, I say only one, but really there can be obviously more than two players playing in the same world. A client is really an entity that shares their point of view, their interpretation of the world, and shares it with the server. But in the end, the server is the one that actually truly has the final word into what's going on. So how does this connection happen? How is it maintained? So between the client and the server, the client sends messages to the server, and the server sends one back. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And this is an ongoing process. And let's define yet another term, which is called a ping. A ping is the actual travel time of a message from the client to the server, and then the server receiving that message and sending back a reply to the client. And when we actually have a very ping, because again, it's the complete time that it takes for that round trip time between messages. And if there's anybody here that has played multiplayer games, they probably know that when there's a high ping, that's a big lag, and of course it disrupts the experience. It can disrupt the experience of one or multiple players joining in a session. And there are multiple reasons why a connection can be faulty. So people can just be straight up very far away. I could be playing here in Seattle, and somebody's one of the other places is in Spain or another country that's farther away, and somebody could just straight up have a faulty device, or just a bad networking setup at their home or wherever they're playing at. Lots of things that can go wrong, including sharks attacking and biting down on underwater fabric optic cables. So dealing with the internet, dealing with latency is a lot of issues. Now, this process of going back and forth, sending messages and sending replies, is an ongoing process during the whole networking session. And the very basic unit of that signal being sent is called a packet. Now, packets are just little bits of data that contain just a little chunk of, like, could be like a player's spaceship or a bullet that a spaceship fire, but it's really just a little bit of data that eventually whenever the server gets it, just basically has to restructure and reform that data to see, oh, okay, we're actually now, and now actually receive the full message. It's an actual game object that is now updated in such way. And a packet consists of has a little bit of header information and what we call the payload, which is the actual data being sent in that packet. Now, that means that in the end, if we have two entities, a host and a server, they're both running the game at the same time. So the games, multiplayer games, can actually determine whether they're running from the point of view of a client or a point of view of the server. And this is what we call client runtime, when the actual instructions of the game, of the program, are being run from that point of view. And if we have client runtime, then we have server runtime, which is, again, the game running all of the instructions, but from the point of view of being the server. And how do these packets actually travel in between these two entities, these two devices? Well, that's what we call an IP address. Now, everything that connects to the internet, my computer where I'm running this presentation on, the streaming devices, your watch, if it's a smartwatch, your phone, everything has a unique identifier that is like its own unique address. So the same way that the mail person will be able to deliver your next delivery, your next letter to your home or wherever you live, the same way there are ways for data to actually reach to the correct device. It's really just a unique numerical representation of the device where you're running your game. And all that I mentioned here could be interpreted as this being a peer-to-peer architecture, where a player is also the host or the actual server. That this doesn't mean that all multiplayer games are done like this. If you're familiar with other multiplayer architectures, you could actually have just a dedicated server with just a machine purely dedicated to just analyzing all the input from clients and sending replies to all the clients that are connected to it, just saying, you're actually here. No, buddy, you're the one that actually died. And no, yep, you were the one who wanted this battle, and so on. But that would mean that dedicated game server is not a player, is not a player participating in the experience as well. There are other architectures out there, but that is a very big topic to cover and out of the scope on this presentation. And Netcode for GameObjects is really not tied to any particular architecture. You can actually apply to many. So now let's go ahead and jump to Unity a little bit, and let's talk about how to prepare a Unity project for using Netcode for GameObjects. Can anybody? Can all of you see my screen that I'm actually now sharing the Unity editor? No?
I think we're still seeing the presentation. So.
Ooh, maybe I only share the screen. Let me stop sharing real quick and share screen. Yeah, screen 1. Do you see Unity now?
Yes.
Sweet. There we go. Presentations, they always go perfectly 100% smooth, no problem, all the time, including at E3. Okay, so so one of the very first things that you need to do whenever you're using this package, because it is currently still in preview, go to your package manager and ignore the fact that it's already installed. I'm going to go over how to install it, but let's all pretend. And the first thing you got to do, you have to enable preview packages. This is the way. So again, the way it accesses is just going to Windows, Package Manager, and in Package Manager, this little gear icon right here, Advanced Project Settings, and enable preview packages. Once you do that, you can actually refresh the list. It won't, at least in 20.3, which is where I'm running, it won't immediately show up. But I'll show you how to actually install the package. So right now, right here, right now I'm in the Unity dashboard. To those of you not familiar with the Unity dashboard, is another service where you can actually create projects. This is not actually a Unity project, but it's like a registry of your project. And from the point of view, and by the way, tied to your actual Unity account, and from the point of view of like how it benefits your project by using the new Unity gaming services, you can actually go between the different sections of services available. You can actually, and right now I'm focusing on multiplayer. So I'm focusing on multiplayer, but nope, click on the button when I didn't want to. What are you doing, Unity dashboard? Okay, it loaded up the new version. Sweet. So if you wanted to, let's go back what we were doing, which is installing Netcode for GameObjects. When it says download SDK, we have a list of all the services available, and you see authentication and analytics, cloud save. All those are part of the backend services. But here we have Netcode for GameObjects, and here relay, here lobby, which I'll talk about it shortly after. But if to get the proper installation script, and really when I say installation script, is the actual value that you would add to the manifest whenever you want to add a package to your project. So you select all the services that you need. You don't have to add them all. You literally can just Control-C, copy here, close this, and then hopefully, yep, packages, manifest.json. Oh, and by the way, can everybody see that I'm actually now showing the manifest? Sweet. Okay. I have installed here, but the same way you will literally copy paste it here and then wait for the editor to refresh, because it now got the signal like, oh, okay, there's actually a new package to install. And if everything goes well, then you would see here installed Netcode for GameObjects. It's still in preview, and all that is really cool. Now, one last note, that another way to get the package, if you really wanted to like get all of the updates like one by one as they come, you can actually clone the package version the development version of the package in our GitHub. I won't go over how to clone it and download it, but at least you can, if you have a GitHub account, recommend it. You can just download it here or clone the project and fetch all the updates as they come. So quick review. Remember, enable preview packages, go to the dashboard, install the SDK, or go to GitHub and clone it. Get the right code snippet, make sure you have Netcode for GameObjects selected at the very least if that's what you want. Add it to the project's manifest.json file, and you should see on the package manager, at least for now, for the purpose of this presentation, this is the latest version of it. Okay, so now let's actually start diving into actual development. Okay, I believe I'm still showing Unity correctly. So yeah, cool. Thank you for the confirmation. That would not have been fun if I started and just talk for half an hour and nobody would see what I was talking about. But okay, we saw earlier Galactic Kittens. So let's go ahead and run this scene that I have here, and let's see what happens. Done. And we have this main menu called with 3 buttons called host, as in start the game from the point of view or server runtime from the point of view of a server, join a client, or quit. I'm not a quitter. I'm gonna quit now, so I'm gonna be a server. Oh, but even though I'm not a quitter, I have an error right here. No network manager present. Let's fix that up right now. So what does that mean? There's no network manager. So there's a very important game object that whenever you're making your own multiplayer game, that we'll call the network manager. Now, the network manager, by the way, it doesn't really matter the transform data, but I don't know, I like to have it clean up like that. And this game object will hold a very important game component called like that, the network manager. Now, the network manager, what it actually does, it just kickstart the network session, and it just says, okay, if I wanted to serve as host, now I've kickstarted it, and I'm ready to receive connections from other clients that would like to join based on my configuration. And that's what the network manager actually holds. We're not gonna do actual internet connection today, but we still need to set the rail of where the packets of data. Remember again that ongoing process of sending signals back and forth between all the connected devices. So I'm gonna go ahead and select Unity Transport, and as you can see, we just got a new script added to the network manager. And by the way, we got rid of the warning because that was the network manager saying, I mean, I can try and start, but I just don't know who to send data or how. So really, this Unity transfer is now we're specifying like to who to actually send data to. If anybody that is a little bit familiar with multiplayer development or web development in general will know that this default value here, this IP address of 127.0.0.1 refers to the local host. So that means that the actual computer where I'm running from it's not like that's my address on my computer. That's just a reserved value of the IP protocol that like says, okay, this is literally just running from the computer that I'm actually running from. So it's not like one of you will probably hold the device as, oh, my IP address is 127.0. No, this is just a reserved value. So we can actually leave it like that. There are other settings you can mess around a little bit, but by just setting the Unity transport and leaving it like that, you can actually start working with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start my scene again, clear the errors, and now boom, I'm gonna host a session, and nothing's going on, but technically I started the network session, and nothing's going on. There's no action. There's nothing, no game objects or anything. But I've successfully started a network session just by doing that. And by the way, another thing that you can do is that you don't actually need to implement a menu to connect with the network manager to start or stop a network session. You can actually start it from the editor. That's actually something really useful when you're starting with it. So I'm gonna stop the host from here. I'm gonna end my scene. Now, another very important value that we have to fill in the network manager, and which is technically optional, but for today I'm gonna be using it, is the player prefab. Now, the player prefab is a value that says, okay, whenever I start the session, if I have a prefab assigned to this, that is a prefab that I'm gonna automatically spawn, and that new instantiated object based on this prefab is gonna represent the player that is joining in the game. So let's go ahead and start the session again. I'm going to start as the host, and oh, we have a new error. Now we don't have a network object assigned to our prefab. So let's go ahead and fix that. Now, if we go to our player spaceship prefab, we see that it has a transform, box collider, audio source, and rigid body, like all basic components that you normally use in regular 2D games, right? We need to add a very important new component called network object, which also comes with the Netcode library. Now, this is network object component. All it does is that it assigns a unique ID to this prefab, saying that, hey, now I'm actually registered. Now I actually have a unique number, and the network manager can actually know how to spawn. It's like you're literally like adding a ticket, a label, saying like, boom, this object can now participate in a network session. So let's go ahead and save that, and let's run our session again because we modified our prefab. And boom, there you go. We actually now have the spaceship showing up and representing the player. There's no movement, or there's no real action going on, but we successfully run a network session and having a player object representing the player. Let's go ahead, and one thing. Oops. Let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit, and let's add another player prefab to it. Now, this player prefab, as you can see, it has the network object. This is more complete. It has other scripts like how to control the ship, how to control the ship movement, basically just like a keyboard controller, and player ship, just the ability to actually shoot a bullet and whatnot. But I want to take your attention to this component right here, client network transform. Now, there exists two types of network transform. Now, a network transform is a component that is actually meant to just save you the logic of having to write, okay, because the player is moving here, now send this new X position value, or send this new Y position value. It saves you the trouble having to write all that logic, and it automatically sends that very important transform information. Like transform is really like if not the most used component in Unity, and by default, whenever you add it to the game object, it works just fine. Like, well, maybe not super optimized or anything. You can adjust some settings, but one of the easiest ways to start making your game a little bit friendly, a little bit more efficient, is by taking advantage of these checkboxes right here. Because why am I not sending Z position data? Because this is a 2D game, and for the purposes of this game, all of the game objects are going to be living in the same Z level. So I really don't need to send those extra floating value. And same with my rotation. Technically, I'm not going to be rotating on the Z axis. It's not going to be rotating like that. But if I want it, then I'll leave it enabled. But I can just, if I want, I can just go ahead and take it away. But since I know that my game object is never going to be scaling in any direction, then I just go ahead and disable them. But you'll see why the importance of this component when I go into the code a bit. But going back to the network session, gonna go ahead and test my scene, and now we have a much better spaceship flying around in the network session. And trust me, don't worry, it's gotta get more interesting. It's not just gonna be this. But see, as I'm actually shooting bullets, they're actually game objects. You can see that on the left side of the screen under the hierarchy being created. Okay. So quick review. in order to start a properly good game network session, you need to create an empty object, recommended to be named network manager, set the network manager component to it. I don't know why I didn't wrote that there, but I just noticed this. Things happen. Anyway, set the type of connection to it. By default, the Unity use Unity transport, and set the correct player prefab. Technically optional, but at least when you're learning, very good step to take. And for preparing your player prefab, don't forget, add a network object component, add your necessary client network transform, depending on whether it's going to be owned by the client or by the server, and then add other additional components as needed. So now let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of code, a little bit of sample code dive. But before I show any code, no, I don't want to say changes to the scene. Before I go into any code, I wanted to show you the scene. I wanted to show you the scene that I wanted a little bit more dynamic scene happening. Let me mute audio for myself. If not, it's gonna drive me crazy while I present. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this session here as a host. And we now see that with the same way that I would prepare my spaceship with the network object and the network object and additional components to spawn other objects, I can actually I can very easily just have a randomized timer and spawn enemies that do their own logic as well, and they can also spawn their game objects. I'm gonna dive into how a game object can be spawned at runtime. So we have this scene here. Gonna stop it, but let me change real quick to build, because yes, all this time I've been showing you scenes that get little by little more interesting, but at the same time you're like, dude, where's the actual networking? Where's the two clients that you showed earlier in that video? Okay, so let's go ahead and actually show you that. I went ahead and built these scenes. Hold on a minute. I'm literally opening just one executable. Okay, excuse me for a moment. Yep, they're both right now. I assume that I'm not sharing the sound, but if I am, sorry about that. But those two were playing sounds in my ears and were driving me a bit crazy. So, okay, so I have these two instances here, and by the way, this is one of the easiest ways of starting to test your game, at least in Windows. In Mac, I found that the best way to actually build the executable, obviously after setting it up with the network manager, with the player prefab and all that, you copy the instance created. So make a copy of and then just run that copy, at least in Mac. But in Windows, you can just run the same executable twice, at least by default. So I'm gonna go ahead and have one as a host and one as a client. And now, obviously I can control only at the same time, but with the default values of the network manager and the network game object, there you go. As you can see, the enemies and the bullets are being synchronized, position, rotation, and in a way, I'm starting to try to get the same experience in both instances. Obviously, a little bit of lag, a little bit might be happening some issues by default, but it is technically a network game happening on my screen. And by the way, since I took away the host, the client was like, "Oh, yeah, you took away You took away my experience, dude. What's going on? Okay. So yes, I wanted to at least show you that that's like the easiest way to actually start testing your network sessions. Let's go ahead and dive a little bit into code. Let's see what's actually going on. Is this a decent font size? Do you want me to? Okay, sweet. I want to make sure that it wasn't either too big or too small, the font size. But okay, so player shift movement. Let's actually talk about the component that actually handles the movement. The first thing I'd like you to see, and I'd like to notice that instead, we're used to here having a class script that has, oh, we're going to inherit from model behavior. But now, instead of model behavior, we actually have network behavior. But what is a network behavior? Network behavior is another component, another basic component that inherits from model behavior. And it's really just a model behavior that has additional networking properties and functions that you can take advantage of. I'm not going to go over all of them today. That's what the documentation online is for. If you want to learn more about it, you can actually ask me questions later on. But at the very least, I wanted to cover the fact that to get started with the proper multiplayer script, you have to inherit from this class instead of mono behavior. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. We have some properties that defined. We have some properties that are used across the script, but I'm gonna jump ahead into the update function. Let's update on what's happening here. So really, in order to update the spaceship, we need to make sure that we are updating and running from the correct point of view. Remember, I talked about client runtime and server runtime. In Galactic Kittens, the way that we're doing it is that the player spaceship, so the actual kittens, the main characters, are going to be owned by the client, while the other objects like spaceship, bullets, and enemies and bullets that are thrown by those enemies and the boss are going to be owned by the server and determined by the server. But so by checking, are we actually running from the point of view of whoever owns this player spaceship? By the way, that flag right there comes from the network behavior. You don't have to do any development to have access to it. And then after checking that we're running in the right point of view, the right runtime, we need to handle the player keyboard input. And really, by the way, we have implemented two ways so that you can actually have a keyboard input, but focusing on one of them, at least for now, when we're doing we call it, we'll type constant. Really, this code is really nothing different from what you've probably done in the past. This is really non-multiplayer, single player code that you've probably done before when you're doing your first 2D games. And same thing when additionally, instead of going key by key, you can actually just get input.getAccess and just use that for to determining a direction on the frame. Now, these two next functions is really just visual adjustments for the game. I'm not gonna go over them now, but let's jump ahead to moving the actual player spaceship. Now, really, all that we're really doing here is just getting a speed by time and updating the position based on the direction of this frame, based on the previous actions of the keyboard presses, and just translating. Again, why does this work? Because in a network manager, we have the client network transform. And that's the way that you don't actually have to code, please send this new information or do this new rotation across everyone. Going back to the code. And then, so that's really in a very basic scenario, really that's all you need to actually and potentially handle movement. Now let's go ahead and see how are we actually shooting whenever we want to like defeat an enemy. Again, you need to make sure that you're inheriting from the network behavior if you want networking functionality in your script. And jump it again, we're going to go again into our update function. And same thing, the same way that we needed to make sure that we were updating from the right runtime in the player movement. By the way, I should actually copy this comment here. That's just a little bit of feedback for myself. And once after we checked that we're on our correct runtime, if I press the space key, I go to this function right here. Oh, wait a minute, this is something new. So we have this function called fire new bullet ServerRPC. What does that mean? So a ServerRPC is really a type of function. And by the way, this attribute right here is also provided by the Netcode library. A ServerRPC is a function that gets called whenever you're running this function from the client and being executed on the server. Again, sometimes it can be a little bit, it can mix you up a little bit when you're starting to use these type of functions. But again, you call it from the client, but eventually they will get executed. These instructions will get executed at the server runtime. And so the player spaceship is saying, okay, I press space. The client is now the owner of the spaceship is now sending a signal to the server saying, server, please spawn a new bullet and add a new object to the networking session. So the server goes ahead. All right, dude, I got you. And the first step that it does is that we spawn a new bullet. Now, what does it take to actually spawn a bullet and add it to the session? We have this helper function here that takes in the prefab that you'd like to spawn, in what position, and this is an additional value that you can set, which is if you wanted to destroy with the scene whenever you change the scene. By default, we leave it as true, and it's good like default behavior, especially when you're learning. So if you've done like some basic Unity development, you've seen this line before. You have a player that you shoot a bullet, or there's an enemy that you like to spawn, or anything, or like a visual effect. You call object.instantiate. Now the only additional thing, at least on this basic level, is that you need to get the reference to that newly instantiated object, get the component network object. Again, the importance of adding that component to the prefabs, and then calling the spawn function on it. And if it's properly set up, and again, if it's mentioned on the network manager as the list of objects that are going to be used across the session, then it'll successfully show up on the game. So really, creating a new object from the multiplayer point of view is still the same as Unity, but you have to make sure that you set up the prefab correctly and the network manager correctly, and run these two additional lines when you instantiate the object. Now, from the point of view of the bullet, so we called, oh, and by the way, we prepare, but after getting the bullet, after instantiating it, then we actually prepare it, and we do some stuff to play some sounds. So I'm not going to go over that for now. Maybe a little bit after the Q&A. But when we spawn that bullet, and again, when we the bullet will also have the inherit from network behavior. We're going to go ahead and jump into the update function. Really, the update function, all it's doing is just if I'm running from the point of view of the server, because we know that this kind of object will be owned by the server, then just translate it, just literally just go, all right, it's going to be going in this direction to the left, at least in my point of view, from the left. And and based on the speed and this just on the delta time, and that's it. And on the physics side, let's say whenever the bullet is colliding with an enemy or a meteorite, we need to again check that we're running on the same point of view from the same runtime. But and then other than that, it's just very familiar code that you've probably seen before. I collide with something, I query to make sure that I'm actually colliding with something that I care about, and then run additional logic. So in Galactic Kittens, if there's an owner and the owner is actually a player, then it's just player score data that gets updated. Not going to be focusing on that now, but what I am going to be focused on, by the way, and yes, because if I collided with something that I can damage, then hit it. Make sure you take away whatever damage points I can actually hit to that enemy. But then the way that I'm currently running the logic here is that if the bullet collides with something, you destroy it automatically, take it out of the session. But really destroying it is not proper vocabulary, because we're really despawning it and let the netcode library actually handle any actual destruction of that object. And that is despawn, and that is the only difference when we're taking away a game object from the network session, that we are not calling destroy immediate or destroy. We just despawn the object and then just let the library do its thing and clean up whenever. Like by default, when you change the scene, boom, the objects actually will get destroyed. And that is the only difference in whenever, at least at least in the basic behavior, when you're destroying or getting rid of an object. Now, we talked about server RPCs, but there's also client RPCs. Now, client RPCs are functions that are called from the server, but executed on the clients. And this time it's actually on all the clients. And there are ways for you to filter out how to make sure that, like, if a client should actually care about this signal. But by default, all of the clients will get the message and all the clients will run the logic. Now, why is there a bullet saying, okay, change the bullet color? Because in the main game, when we've only seen one spaceship today, but in the main game, there's actually 4 characters. So there are 4 different colors that a bullet can take shape. And just whenever you spawn it, whenever somebody says, "Oh, I'm shooting a new bullet," the server says, "Okay, cool. What color are you? Oh, you're the blue cat. All right, cool. Clients, all of you have a version of this bullet. Now change it to blue to reflect the proper player color." And that is at least the initial topics that I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover object movement. By the way, I should have shown you this before, but my bad. My bad. I wanted to show you object movement. How do we shoot bullets? Other objects, how do other objects actually move? Some basic 2D collision and object despawning. This is a diagram of the server RPC that I talked about. So here we can actually visualize that we are running from the client, and then in this case, a client, imagine the spaceship that we're pressing the spacebar, and then the client says, "Server, whenever you get the chance, whenever you get this message, please spawn this new bullet in set position," and then the server say, "All right, gotcha." And gotcha. So after some latency, because obviously it takes some time from the client to get that message, and the server, once it gets the message, executes, spawns the bullet, lets it fly. On the other side, the server, whenever, and let's say in the sample of like, "Oh, change your color because the blue cat fired." So the server goes, "Okay, now that I actually spawned the bullet, yo, clients, turn this bullet to blue." And same again. The clients receive the message, and that's when they execute the logic. But again, since it's a message, it takes some time, and it could vary depending on which client is where they are located, and the other the other issues that that could potentially happen that I talked about. Okay, some things that I didn't cover, and please consider those for when we get to questions and answers. I did not go over like playing sounds, sprite movement, synchronization. I don't know if you potentially saw, but when I was moving the player character, the spaceship, you could actually see that that I actually changed sprites, and it was synchronizing across different across all the clients. So that way, all of them could see, rather than just a static spaceship, they could see, oh, it's gliding up, ooh, it's gliding down, and whatnot. And I didn't talk about other creation of visual effects. So yeah, I can actually go a little bit deeper into those once we get to the Q&A. But before that, I wanted to talk about additional resources and services. Now, even though with all this that I talked about today, and if you're excited, you're, oh man, I'm ready. Oh man, Esteban, I'm ready to go, dude. Let's do it. I would say, please check out and start reading about not just about Unity gaming services in general, but also start reading about the documentation. Definitely start getting into it. They'll help you to getting into that mindset of single player versus multiplayer. And please follow the Hello World tutorial so that you can learn about other basic stuff that I might have not covered here today. Again, this is a very multiplayer development, so it's a very big topic. And if you think about it, we've only covered one genre today, which is small scale co-op games. And we all know how many genres of multiplayer games are out there. Plenty of stuff to learn. Please also follow, if you get a chance, again, going through the tutorials and the documentation, please read our blogs, and they'll help you a great way. After going through the Hello World tutorials, I would definitely recommend that you go over what we call the bite-sized samples. Now, these are three very small, smaller than Galactic Kittens, not GameObjects, small sample games, all of them Unity projects that you can download and study. And basically, especially with the two 2D ones, you can get like sort of like a smaller scale version of what we're doing with Galactic Kittens. But you can also learn basic 2D movement, some basic collision, and even some game flows and other modes. Now, there's another one, the 3D one that I'm showing right here, which is the client-driven sample. It's a 3D one, and it also shows how to actually, how to even actually, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it even dynamically can change parenting of objects, which is something that we don't do in the Galactic Kittens one. But definitely all of them are really small, very digestible, I would say, and very good starting points. And then, last but not least, our more full, literally boss level sample called Bostrom. It's a small scale, but still a fully 3D game that actually made in Universal Render Pipeline that you can even download today. You can download today, and not only does it use Netcode for GameObjects, it uses Relay and Lobby. So this game you can actually test it online and test it online with friends or coworkers and check it out. But I will admit, it is not a 101 solution. Definitely, this is for more advanced users. Now, the two other services that I very briefly wanted to talk about was Relay. So when you're ready, like you saw me testing just one instance here, one instance here, they're both running on my computer. That's not how you truly test a full game when you develop one. Relay, whenever you add this service, which is not part of Netcode, it's an additional one, you can add this service to your game so that whenever you ship the game or share with somebody, share your project with somebody that you trust, and you both run the project at the same time, and they are assigned to the same project on the Unity dashboard, when you run the game, you'll be able to make a connection with that other play, and it's really cool. So instead of directly connecting somebody's device, phone, laptop, and what have not, no, this service, and you may think of this in terms of like even safety for your players. It actually creates a fake IP to represent the user, and the other players are actually connecting to that, and it actually hides the host information. Lobby, on the other hand, it is another service. And by the way, all these three services, Netcode for GameObjects, Relay, Lobby, you can use them independently, technically, but they work really well together. Lobby is like the name says. Lobby is a service that you add, and you can actually browse public lobbies or private lobbies that are existing whenever your players are running your ship games. So Lobby lets you create either private or public lobbies. Similar, if any of you have played Among Us in the past, probably I played it a lot in 2020. Very cool game, by the way. Shout out to Among Us. But if you played the game before, you've seen that you can start a game session, you can host it, and if it's a private one, then you get a little code that you share, right? So this service does that for you. The service lets you query what public lobbies are there, but at the same time, you can actually, if you build the correct interface around it, like the right UI, then you can say, you can have like a text box saying, oh, rather than choosing a public lobby, then please insert this code right here, and whoever is the host, you would need to get that actual code that is being generated when you create a private lobby, and then the client would insert that code and join into your session. And that's why we see in this diagram here that somebody searching for purely public games will not be able to join. But on the other hand, if you make a public lobby, then and if you build the right interface for it, and then people will actually be able to query what lobbies are available, the public ones, and be able to join. And even if it's a public one, you can also you also generate a code and share it with a friend, and they can also join. And in fact, the lobby service also has a quick join option as well. For additional resources other than all the blogs and all the documentation, all the tutorial and all that, definitely I would recommend that you join the Unity multiplayer networking Discord and the good old multiplayer forum as well. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And please, if you have any questions, fire away.
Excellent. That was awesome. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for hosting.
Get the gallery view back. There were a bunch of questions in the chat. There's a person, Disduke, I guess, who's your colleague at Unity, who's been answering a lot of them. So that's been awesome.
David Salgado.
Ah, David.
Yeah.
Hey, hola, David.
Nice. There are
any leftover questions that David probably I assume that David killed like at least half of them or something.
Yeah, he knocked them down. Like every time there was a question coming up, bam, we got an answer in there. So we don't have a lot left over for you. So we're going to have to come up with some all new questions just for you.
It actually might be worth reading some of them for the people who might not see the chat.
That's a great idea. All right, where were you? Where were we? So you were using Unity 2020.3. Is that the best one to use with the new netcode? What's the status of release readiness, and which version of Unity is best paired with it?
No, that's a good question, and definitely 2020.3 is the one that, at least even me personally, I don't want to test it the most. But no, it should work. It should work fine with beyond that. So 2021, 2022. But yes. And in fact, after this talk, I'm actually going to update the Galactic Cadence project and retest again with newer versions. So yeah, it's just that for the purpose of this talk, I wanted to present in the environment that I'm used to. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Oh, and also if you face any issues, to whoever asked that question, if you face any issues, feel free to. I took away the screen too fast. Here's my Twitter and my email. I don't know. But yeah, in case anybody has any questions, I guess I can leave that up for now. In case people want to follow me or email me and whatnot. Yeah, definitely any issues that you face if you try this library or any of the services that I spoke about today. Yeah, feel free to give me a shout out or questions. But yeah, any other leftover questions?
Graham, you asked one about
Yeah, I
yeah,
was asking which platforms this is supported for. I know it's preview, so that might be up in the air, but I'm curious, like, what the plan is. Like, is this going to be supported on consoles or mobile or, WebGL?
So correct. So right now it does work. In fact, the Bostrom game that I talked about does work on mobile. You can actually test it on an Android and an iPhone. We actually had it at GDC. We had it on a Mac and on a Pixel 6. But you could try it out. You could try out XR. If I'm not mistaken, it's on XR that is running on Android environments and Windows environments. If I'm not mistaken, so you should be and you should be able to run it on some consoles. I don't have the official list, but on the documentation we do mention like the types of consoles that you'll be able to use. In fact, I should have given a shout out. There's a game currently being developed for multiple platforms, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But yes, at least there are studios out there making co-op games with this SDK.
Nice.
But yes.
What about WebGL?
Every time I get this question, and it's a very valid one too. It's on our roadmap. It's on our roadmap. No, we currently are not supporting, at least as far as my knowledge goes. No, but it is very requested. And in fact, I didn't share the link today, but if you go to a public roadmap, you have the option to as well communicate and be like, we want WebGL, we want WebGL.
Nice.
But yeah, it is part of the roadmap. But yeah.
Cool. I have a really quick follow up to my platforms question. Does this support like I know like there's maybe this is a services question actually. Does it support crossplay between different platforms?
When we tried in GDC, both the MacBook and the Pixel were playing together when we were running.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's good.
The Bostrom sample. So yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have said that. But okay.
Awesome. We've had a couple of requests for links to the presentation and resources for the presentation. Do you have the slide deck available for?
Yeah, I can share. I can share the slide. The slides definitely. I'll see what I can do to like at least see if I can host share like the condensed. Here's what I showed today version of the project, but yeah, we can work something out. But the slides definitely for sure.
Excellent.
And of course, that's another thing. Please, if anybody wants to share any feedback or feel free to go ahead and like email me on one. So yeah.
Excellent. Do we have more questions from the audience? I'm trying to read them all. Links to the slides. Yes, we've asked that question. Thank you, Seth Harper. So yeah, that was a question from Cold Flame Studios asked, are there any costs associated with relay and lobby services? Obviously, this is probably pre-release, so you probably can't talk about it too much, but who knows?
Well, I should.
You can never ask the developer the sales questions. It's always it's always flinch internally whenever I ask some of the questions.
I didn't think that I was gonna get pricing questions. At the very least, okay, I can actually do this. There are some pricing levels for some services now. As far as I know, especially now that we're in pre-release, there is no super fixed cost. But especially for what I can say is that for small scale games and especially for trials, it should be free just fine. But again, I don't. I can put you in the proper contact with if you're interested in sales or any direct pricing specifics. But yes, that's
it's just good to know a bit about where the land is like the landscape is really. Whenever you do anything with multiplayer, if you start moving beyond just a simple peer-to-peer connection, you've got to think about, well, if there's a middleman somewhere, they're going to need some money because servers cost money. And network traffic is one of those things that is extremely heavy and can bring down servers.
Indeed. That is
good at that.
that is a very valid concern. And in fact, what I can actually answer now is that there are no costs for relay, and it will remain free during duration of the beta. Same for the lobby.
Nice.
And so
jump on it now whilst it's in
beta. No, definitely.
Sounds like the very, very typical like Unity way of getting it out to everybody, and if your game takes off, then it's not that expensive, but it's like one of those things where everybody can use it. Sounds like.
Correct. And for Netcode, just to jump ahead of the question, I don't see any pricing per se, but yeah, if any additional questions, please, I can put you in contact with any sales for like any future developments, and not just for the 3 services that I talked today, but any of the other services. But yeah.
That's good. Yeah, no, one of the commenters mentions that they are a teacher, and I know that teachers have limited budget. And when I was working in education, we also had very limited budget. So, yeah, educational budgets are a much requested feature. So,
here's a really difficult question. What is your favorite color? Someone wants to
know. It used to be black, but now it's kind of like this blue right here that is cutting in between.
Ooh, yeah. Any
questions. So yeah, I would say that's nice. My current favorite color.
Good blue.
Nice.
And we have, if we have any more questions, if anyone has any more questions, please type them into chat. We do have some JetBrains Rider licenses to give away.
Oh, I want to see that.
Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah. So we need to ask a question for the audience, and the first ones to type in the answer can win Rider. The question we suggested before, when we were preparing for this talk, might be a bit of a long answer. I don't know. Can we simplify it? Let's simplify it because we want to have a nice, quick fire response from our audience. What was the very first game object that Esteban had to make in his demo in order for the game to run?
That's a good one.
Yes, we have 2 answers already.
Nice.
Excellent.
Good question.
It makes me smile when I see things like Network Manager and Network Transform, because I've actually had to make Network Manager and Network Transform so many times over the past 10 years or so. It's my old friends. They're still there. So thank you. Yes, Sev Harper, Marcus Aurelius 76, and Bouliu. You have all correctly said, I believe it was Network Manager, correct, Esteban?
The first component that I prepared?
Yes.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Nice.
That is very correct, and they definitely paid attention.
Please message me with email addresses. So what you need to do is, for you 3 lucky winners, please message the Boston Unity Group Twitch account who just typed it into chat with your email addresses. And what we'll do is email you the activation codes for your copy of Rider.
But by the way, I'm kind of curious, how long is the license?
It's a
Year?
one-year license.
1 year. Yeah.
1 year? Oh wow, that's a really good price.
Yeah, it's really good because it's like you can use it for anything too. So if you don't want to use it for Writer, you can use it for PyCharm. You can use it for PHP Storm or whatever. It's like it's wild.
Yeah, it's the full JetBrains.
Yeah. JetBrains is
Dang.
awesome.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Very friendly community folk on Twitter. I've noticed as well. So yes, we do like those guys.
Yeah.
And girls. Sorry, folks. So do we have any more questions? I don't think we have any more questions, do we? I have 3 messages. Excellent. I have messages coming in. Hello. All right. So I will manage this. Graham, take over.
All right. Well, once again, Esteban, thank you so much for the presentation. This was like amazing. This
Thank
is
you.
some really cool stuff. I know a lot of us are very excited about it, so it's really cool to see it in action.
Thank you for hosting, for real.
Yeah.
This was fun. So definitely. No, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see what people come up with and people do on their own projects. So yeah, and please break the SDK. Like give us a problem.
To our QA.
Please.
I can't wait to try this out in the metaverse.
Hey.
I do love the fact that the source code for this is up on GitHub. The fact that all of the source is right there.
And you can contribute. There are contribution guidelines. Yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Like
I'll go and take a look.
That's huge.
Yeah, no, that's really good news. I mean, I hope that stays that way, because open source is wonderful, and especially when it comes to things like just looking at how you did some of the interpolation for network transforms. It's great to see somebody's algorithm out there.
Yeah.
I remember having to write my own position interpolation code, and it was painful years ago. So it's nice that's a solved problem these days.
Exactly. Now it's a component, and you just play with some values.
It's a really useful one too. It's one of those really useful topics to know and understand if you're doing anything regarding multiplayer. Is to be able to see how people solve the problem of, how do you minimize the latency between players? How do you optimize it's good. Thank you. I can go over this. I love
Chris
this
is
stuff.
happy.
I'm glad.
Apart from the lack of WebGL code, but they're part of
And on that note, thank you everybody for coming to Bug. Our next event.
Definitely.
Let's see. Next event, like I said, was the 25th, next month. Once again, if you're interested in giving a talk on a game you worked on or anything related to Unity, we'd love to have you. So just message the 3 of us and we'll get you set up. Yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Later.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.